Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. So today's focus is going to be our first knowledge area, business analysis, planning and monitoring. Yes, that will be our focus today. Let's start today's session with a quiz. Everyone can see my screen? Yes, in the chat box if you can see. So most of these questions that I've put forward are questions actually coming from my students. Normally, these are the questions that come in the master class, and everyone's confused between what actually happens in waterfall and what happens in Scrum. First one, all stakeholders present in a waterfall project exist also in a Scrum project. Is that a true statement or a false statement? Okay, in your responses, let me have a look. Yes, that's correct. True, it's true. So most of the people who are new to IT, especially, they get confused. Do the stakeholders change with the methodology? No, they don't change. Product owner in Scrum is equal to dash in waterfall. What is the role in waterfall that a product owner maps to? Identify that. Let's be very clear on that. Yes, put in your understanding. It's okay even if it's wrong. I'm not going to grade you based on this quest. This is for your understanding so that you are very, very clear. Product owner in Scrum is equal to the customer spoke in waterfall. Product owners in Scrum are the people responsible for giving you the requirements. Okay? Product owners are not project managers. Now, the next statement, product owner can be internal or external to an organization. Is that true or false? Correct. It's a true statement. Product owner can be internal or external to an organization. That means, for example, you are working in an IT services company. Let's say Accenture is the IT services company you're working with, and you are developing an application for, let's say, Barclays Bank. Okay. So Barclays is a customer to Accenture. Then in that case, the PO will be from Barclays, and your entire IT team will be from Accenture. Hmm? So product owner, the PO is now, in this case, the product PO is external to the IT organization. It belongs to a different organization. Okay? So that's a case where a PO is external. Now, a case where a PO is internal. Let's say the bank wants to build an application and they decide that they will do it in-house. Now, they don't want to outsource it to an IT player. Most of the banks and insurance companies, they have their internal IT team as well. Okay. So if it is an in-house development happening, so which means Barclays IT team is going to be involved in developing that particular application for Barclays Bank only. In that case, the PO will be internal to the organization. So the IT team also belongs to Barclays. The PO also belongs to the Barclays, and sponsor also belongs to the same bank. Okay. So remember this. Students usually get confused with this. The fourth sentence, requirements are called as backlog items in Scrum. This is for your understanding. Mention all these points are very vital, guys. So these are some of the areas where students get confused. That's why I've made these statements. So what we call in waterfall plainly as requirements, you must be hearing requirements everywhere. BA does requirements gathering, they do requirement analysis. Now, when it comes to Scrum, the same requirements are called as backlog items. This is the terminology. So even in my Scrum video, that's the reason I say all the people who are coming to the masterclass should refer to those videos and come, because in the IT blueprint video, I've gone in depth into each of these terminologies used in Scrum. So you'll see throughout the masterclass, I will start using these terminologies where I say the BA creates a backlog. Sorry, the PO creates a backlog, and the BA helps, it works jointly with the PO to maintain the backlog. So you'll be wondering, what is backlog? Okay. Just remember, backlog contains requirements. Now, the next statement further clarifies it. Backlog can also contain defects, tasks, and issues. That means backlog does not only contain requirements, but it contains defects, tasks, issues. So that entire set of work list, you can call it a work list, is called as backlog in Scrum. Sprint duration can vary between dash weeks. Who can answer this? Tell me, what is a sprint duration in Scrum? Great. I see many of you have gone through the IT blueprint. Yes, sprint duration can be anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. It should not exceed 4 weeks. You can plan your sprint anytime between 1 to 4 weeks. Sprint backlog is an extract from dash, which particular document? Great, good responses. Yes, sprint backlog is an extract from the product backlog. So we have a product backlog, guys. That means the PO creates the product backlog. Like I said, PO is the main person in the project who is responsible for giving you clarity in requirements. That's the reason PO maps to a customer in Waterfall. Remember, in Waterfall, customer gives us the requirements. In Scrum, the same person is called as a PO. Okay. So PO, the product owner, is the person who owns that backlog, product backlog. And what does the product backlog contain? It will contain all the different features that they need for that particular product, whatever product you're developing, whatever application you're developing for the customer. So your product backlog might be having 100, 200 odd features. A huge list it might be. But the sprint backlog will contain only the list of features that are going to go in that particular sprint. That means whatever are the items your team is going to work for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks sprint, that will be a part of sprint backlog and not the entire set. So out of the 200 items, your team might pick 10 items, 8 items, whatever. That is decided during sprint planning. So that becomes a part of sprint backlog. Scrum Master. Now complete this statement. Scrum Master. Now we are coming from product owner, we are moving to Scrum Master so that we can clarify the Scrum Master's role. Scrum Master facilitates dash, removes dash, and helps team move forward. What do you think? What are the words that will fit here? Scrum Master facilitates dash. Good. Yes, correct. That's good job, guys. I'm really happy this group is clear on the Scrum concept. So Scrum Master facilitates meetings, removes impediments, or you can call roadblocks, whatever, is the same. Removes impediments and helps the team move forward. Remember that Scrum Master is not a project manager in a project. Many organizations, even when you join a new organization, you'll see that many organizations treat a Scrum Master just like a project manager. But that's not how it is. He is not a project manager. He's the guy who drives all the meetings, ensures that the team has adequate resources and and all the tools that are required to move forward in the project. But he is not a project manager. That means in a waterfall project, a project manager, he does estimation, he does work allocation, and he's the guy who is responsible for keeping a tab on what is the status, how much we have reached in this particular release. A Scrum Master does not do that. Scrum Master is not involved in estimation. He doesn't do work allocation. So who does that in a Scrum project? It's done by the development teams themselves. That's why in the Scrum project, the people, the programmers, coders who are a part of the development team, they are very, very powerful because they are given complete authority to estimate for the work that they will be doing and allocate it, distribute it amongst themselves. So they are very well aware of who has a better competency in what kind of technology, what kind of module a person is comfortable working, because they have jointly worked as a team for several months, right? So they are so Scrum believes they are the right people to allocate or distribute work amongst themselves, and somebody else should not be allocating it. So all of that work allocation, estimation, the high level planning that a project manager does in Waterfall is done by the technical team in a Scrum project. So Scrum Master's role more is to act like a coach, drive meetings, and remove obstacles. In a Scrum, project requirements are documented as dash. What is? Fill in the blanks. Project requirements are documented as That's correct. In a Scrum project, documents requirements are documented as user stories. So this is what we have to remember. So as we move forward, we will learn how to write user stories, and you will be writing user stories with me. At that time, you should not confused. You should not get confused as to why this user story, who is going to write them, and where we write. So remember, if you're working in a Scrum project, you will be writing user stories. You will not be writing functional requirement documents. Remember that. Epic in Scrum is equal to dash in waterfall. Epic in Scrum is equal to dash in waterfall. Take a guess, even if you don't know. It's okay. In a Scrum project, when we get requirements from the PO, we get it in the form of epics. These epics have to be broken down by the BA into user stories. That means the BA has to document it in the format of user stories. Now, what does epic in Scrum map to waterfall? A document in waterfall. So this is a question that everyone wants clarity on. I see that I'm not getting proper responses. Epic in Scrum, remember, it maps to business requirements in waterfall. Remember in yesterday's class, we saw all the different categories of requirements. We saw business requirements. What is the question that business requirements answer, guys? Have you taken notes? What is the question that comes to your mind when we think about business requirements? They answer the question? Yes, correct. Business requirements answer the question why. That means why this particular feature is required. So business requirements are very high level requirements, right? Similarly, epics and Scrum are very high level requirements. They have to be broken down into user story to create it in a detailed format. So this is for simplicity of your understanding how you can map an epic to a relevant requirement type in waterfall. You will not find this information anywhere there in the internet. This is just for our mapping understanding. Okay. Now, user story in Scrum will be equal to what in waterfall? Now, this you can do. I help you do the 11th one. You help me with the 12th one. User story in Scrum will map to what in waterfall? What document it will map to? What type of requirement? Sorry. What type of requirement in waterfall it will map? Yes, correct. Now you're in the right lines. Yes. User story in Scrum maps to functional requirements in waterfall. So this slide I had especially created to clarify and remove all the doubts when it comes to two different methodologies. We are learning two methods, right? Through two predominant methods in which software is developed. So people tend to get confused. In waterfall we have this, and Scrum something else is there. What does that actually mean? Are they two different things? So I believe the slide has given you clarity. Is it? If it's given you clarity, type CL in the chat box. Hmm. So I hope each one of you have noted down these important points. Great. Thank you, guys. Now we will proceed with today's syllabus. So I will be using these terminologies now very frequently in our masterclass, and I don't want anyone to be confused when I use this. So like I said, today's focus is going to be the first knowledge area, that is BAPM. This is a short form. Okay. Every time we refer to this knowledge area, we are going to call it as BAPM, that is business analysis, planning, and monitoring. Now, as the name suggests, what do you feel this knowledge area is all about? Take a guess. It's okay. The name itself contains the key ingredients involved in this knowledge area. That's correct. Planning. It's all about planning. So I'll put down some important points on my whiteboard. Make a note of these important points. Very, very crucial for you, even when you start working as a PA. Okay, this brings us to the whiteboard that I had created yesterday. All these activities are done, guys. How many of you have uploaded the mind map in Exam Simulator? Great, great. I'm really happy. Yes, everyone has read the BRD document. And throughout this week, guys, you might have questions again in the BRD document. So keep posting us with those questions and we'll respond back. Those of you who have not gone through the IT blueprint and requirement framework, very, very vital for you to go through that. So this was yesterday's. Let me just remove this. We are going to discuss BAPM today. Now, why is planning necessary, guys? Planning is important in everything, in every work that we do, right? Why do you think planning is necessary? Give one word that comes to your mind when you think about planning. Any planning, anything, okay? Even if you're going out on a vacation with a group of friends, it requires a lot of planning so that things don't go haywire. Yes, yes. I got a very good word for organizing. Thank you. To avoid hurdles. So planning takes care of all of that. If you're planning a vacation with your friends, if you plan which exactly, if you're visiting a particular country for the first time and you plan out the entire itinerary as to day one, what are the different sightseeing locations you'll be visiting, how you will be getting to those locations, what will be your travel mode. It requires extensive planning, right? If you just land up in an unknown place and then think, okay, where to go next, that's a very unplanned way of doing things. Don't you think it will be a little unorganized if you do that? Many times, these kind of, if you just go somewhere without any planning, you will see that it's not a very fruitful vacation. You were not able to enjoy or see that many places as you could have if you had a plan in place. Okay, so that's the significance of planning. We should all, when we are planning something, it might be an event or a big occasion. We need to plan it so that we can arrange for stuff. Even when we are planning a big bash where we are inviting a lot of people, we do sufficient amount of planning. Even it might be a small get together that we do at home, right? Where maybe just a handful of friends are coming, 6 to 7 people, but you will be planning one day ahead, thinking about, okay, what's the dinner I'm going to serve my guests. Okay, there's a planning that goes on in your mind, right? What do I need to order from outside, and what am I going to prepare at home? All of that is part of planning. So this is the real life planning that we do. Now let's come back to our IT scenario and think about what kind of planning a business analyst does. Hmm? So first and foremost, what you have to remember, all the information that you are going to hear in this particular chapter, the first knowledge area, are tasks that a senior BA does. Okay. So I don't want any one of you here to get overwhelmed thinking, oh my God, I've never worked in an IT project. And if I'm asked to do planning, how will I do planning? Don't worry about it. Because as an entry level BA, you will never do it. Organizations don't expect you to do this kind of a planning if you are in an entry level position. So if you are junior BA, if you're a junior BA, and if you're placed in a large project, let's say you have been hired as in a junior BA position, but your organization places you in a large complex project. Now, large complex projects definitely require planning to be done as business analyst. But in these kind of projects, you will always have a senior BA who will handhold you in the planning. Okay, so as a junior BA, you will be working in conjunction with a senior BA or a lead BA, and you will be working with her hand in hand. She will prepare the plan, and you might be required to give her some inputs in terms of how much time you will require to complete a particular activity and all of that. So you will directly never be involved in planning if you are in a entry level position. So this is very, very, very important, guys. Take a note of this. Students who prepare for ECBA exam, because the knowledge area business analysis planning is there, they tend to get a little nervous that they might be asked to do this on the job. Don't worry about it. From the exam per se, we have to learn this knowledge area because it's a part of our syllabus. So let me take you now to the first task. Now, the first task in this knowledge area is plan business analysis approach. And as the name suggests, what is the BA planning here? Can anybody take a guess here? Looking at the name, when you start responding to me in terms of this understanding this knowledge area, you will be very easily be able to pick up these knowledge areas in Webwork. Okay? So tell me, what is the BA planning here? The answer is there in the slide itself. Yes, correct. The BA is planning the approach. What is approach? What is the English literal meaning of approach? Approach is planning an appropriate way to do something. You're preparing a roadmap or an approach by which you can get a desired outcome. So in this case, you have to visualize a senior BA working in a large project, and she is developing a plan as to how she will be performing different business analysis activities. And what are these different business analysis activities? As a BA, we do several activities, right? We do need assessment, we do requirements gathering, requirement analysis, all of those activities which I showed you in the last session. The last session, I gave you the responsibility chart for a BA. All of these are activities that she does. So a business analyst, a senior BA, has to create a document which will give everybody clarity as to what kind of activities she will be doing, what documents she will be producing, and when exactly these documents will be produced. So all the high-level planning, we can just compare this with the planning a project manager does on the project. So a project manager working in a waterfall project, he will prepare a project plan that will list down all the activities his technical team will be doing, right? He will list down who will be working on which module. Okay? Let's say Peter will be working on the search module, Harry will be working on login and registration. So he will be involved in estimation as well as work allocation. So a lead BA in a large project will be managing the business analysis activities. She'll not be managing the technical coding part of it, not that. So I have a document for you in the requirements documentation templates. Okay, so go to Business Analysis Hub, and in the requirements documentation template, you will see a template for business analysis plan. Let me bring up that template so that you can understand what I'm talking about. You can go and see this template in the requirement documentation templates. So this is the business analysis plan, guys. And this is exactly the approach document that Webwork is talking about. And this plan document, this is a document that we had created for one particular banking project. And if you read through this document, you will see the kind of information the senior BA has put in over here. So she has created a high-level approach saying that our project is following the Scrum framework and how the requirements are going to be gathered from the customer spots, how epics will be created. So she has put in some bulleted points by which she wants to give clarity to the customer stakeholders also, how requirements will be handled in the project. Then she has put a stakeholder register. What is a stakeholder register? A stakeholder register is a simple list like this, which contains the key stakeholders from the customer side. You can also include your technical team is also a stakeholder, so you can add them also. So what this register shows is the name of the stakeholder, his position in the organization, the role that he's performing, and responsibilities, location, his level of influence in the project, and interest. So this is an example of stakeholder register. Likewise, there will be several sections in this document. Like in this case, we have also created an organization modeling. I'm going to get into this. You will learn how to create organization model. Okay. Different business analysis activities that we will complete. We are going to do all of this. It is written in this business analysis planning. So I want you to go through this plan document and understand how a BA actually creates a plan in a large project. Now, small and mid-sized project guys don't do this level of planning. Okay. So in small, mid-sized projects, there might be one or two customers, stakeholders that you are interacting with. In large projects, what happens? There are multiple departments involved from the customer side. There are multiple business units involved. So the larger the user base, the larger the number of stakeholders involved in requirements, the higher the complexity of the requirements. We need to do all this then. You'll see for requirements gathering also, a plan has been put forward, when the requirements gathering is going to start, what technique is going to be used for gathering the requirements, along with the dates and everything is given here. So definitely take a look at this document, guys. It will give you a very good insight about how planning is done in this analysis world. When you look into this document, you will understand what business analysis approach is all about. Now, every task in WebOp, like I mentioned yesterday, has inputs, elements, and outputs. Can anybody tell me what input is all about? What is input? Input equal to, what does that map to? Let me see how much you remember. Input equal to? Yes, correct. Inputs are the documents that a BA refers to when she has to complete that particular task. So in this case, the task is plan business analysis approach. And the input that she needs is the understanding of the business needs that is given. That means she should have a good understanding of the problem that the customer is facing. Otherwise, she'll not be able to do planning. So these inputs are always the stuff that you need initially to start a particular task. Okay. And then we have elements. What did I tell you about elements? What are elements? Yes, elements answer the question how that particular task has to be done. So business analysis approach, I already showed you that business analysis plan document. It is there in business analysis hub, requirements, documentation, templates, course bundle. So there's a course bundle called as documentation templates that contains only files. There are no video recordings over there. Only different templates for FRD, user stories. So one of the templates is business analysis plan. You can go and see that. So that template gives you complete visibility what BA is expected to do in business analysis planning. So elements describes exactly that. What I showed you in the plan document, that's exactly what elements talk about. That is what kind of documents will be produced by a BA and what will be the level of detail in the documents. So you will see a section in WebOp which says formality and level of detail in business analysis deliverables. What are deliverables, guys? Some terminologies you should be knowing when you're reading WebOp. Deliverables equal to correct. Deliverables equal to output or the documents that a VA will produce. Deliverables can also be called as artifacts. It's the same. Okay, so write down all this synonyms so that you don't get confused. Predictive approach and adaptive approach. What did I mention? P equal to what and A equal to what? Put in the chat box. Let me see. How many of you remember? P equal to? We are going to revise everything that we did in the first class. As we go ahead, I want a lot of responses from you because I don't want my students to forget that is mentioned. Correct. So you're in sync with me. So that means that you all are taking down notes. P equal to waterfall, A equal to agile approach. So what they intend to say in the element section is if your project follows a waterfall method in the plan document, you'll see when you go through the plan document, you'll see I've mentioned a section where I've indicated, okay, this project follows Scrum framework. So that is the reason these are the documents that we will create. So, this is exactly what the elements talk about. Mention what is the methodology that you are following, and according to that methodology, what are the artifacts you will prepare. And similarly, the other elements talk about business analysis activities, the timing of the work. I showed you the estimation that we have done, when requirements gathering is going to start and when it is going to end. The complexity, risk involved, and the approval, how the business stakeholders are going to approve your documents. Approval of the documents we'll see in detail, okay? How to get your documents approved by business stakeholders. So for one of our, sometimes also, yes, this is very important from the job per se, let me tell you. Sometimes if you are coming to a business analyst role, having some amount of previous experience, like recently, one of my students, she migrated to a BS role, but she already had 10 years of banking experience. So she was coming from banking operations. BA role was absolutely new to her. But because of 10 years of experience already in the industry, she was hired directly into a lead BS position. Yeah. So in that case, now in her case, what happened? She had this additional responsibility of preparing business analysis plan document. Okay, so if you get hired directly in a higher level position in business analysis, then definitely this will become a part of your responsibility, planning for business analysis approach. So in the one-on-one mentoring that I am doing for her, we are together preparing a plan for her project, how she will approach the stakeholders, how she will conduct requirements gathering, and how she will move ahead to requirement analysis. This she has to submit this plan to her managers in the next 2 weeks. Okay. Many times this also is one case that arises. You get directly absorbed in a lead VA position. So you'll see along with every task, guys, remember there is a laundry list of techniques. Did you see that? If you have BA Box open in front of you, yes, today I forgot to ask you to open BA Box. Please keep it always open when my lecture is going on, because I want you to simultaneously refer to BA Box. Okay, because if you go once the lecture is over and then the next day you go and check it, you might feel that you're lost. So that you know exactly what section in BA Box I'm referring to, it is very, very important. You keep it open in your laptop as well. Okay. Keep that open and you will see that every task has a laundry list of techniques associated with it. Like I already mentioned in the first session, we will be handling a bunch of techniques in every class. We'll not be doing all the list together, because then it is very boring, very tiring to listen to all those techniques. Every class we will be targeting a bunch of techniques so that you can better absorb that information. So these are the techniques associated with planning business analysis approach. What are the two techniques that we discussed in yesterday's class, guys? Do you remember two techniques that we discussed? Let me see how many of you remember the two techniques. Great, that's great. Keep a tab, as you are as the class is progressing, keep a tab on all the techniques that we are referring to, because our last chapter number 10 in BA Box is exclusively for techniques, chapter 10. So I'm not going to repeat all the techniques that we've already discussed. When we arrive at chapter 10, I'm only going to discuss about the techniques we never spoke about in the class. So some new techniques we will discuss. So this is approach. At the end of business analysis planning, lead BA will be creating a business analysis approach document, which is something which I just showed you on the screen. So the template is there for you guys. Everything is given to you in a plate. You just have to modify it as per your project requirements. The next task, guys, very, very important. Now, this task is important even if you are a junior BA. Why? Because this is all about planning stakeholder engagement. And what does stakeholder engagement means? It means that as a BA, if you remember the slide that I showed you in the first session, the list of responsibilities a BA has, one of the responsibilities, stakeholder management, right? We are responsible for handling all stakeholders in the project and seeing to it that these stakeholders are really happy. So in this task, WebOps specifically talks about how you can plan stakeholder engagement. That is how you can engage with these stakeholders so that you can have good relationships with them. Okay. Isn't it interesting? Because in your project, you will meet stakeholders of different type and different nature. How many of you agree with that? One person is not similar to the other. Everyone has brings in their own experience, their own attitude, their level of authority differs. So the way we engage, even when you as friends collaborate for a particular activity, you will see that each one of you is different, right? So stakeholder management is one of the challenge areas most business analysts face. There are some students in our community who are having some issues with the stakeholders. The stakeholders are too rigid. They're not cooperative. So they come to me to seek advice, mentoring as to how better to handle this particular stakeholder. Okay. So in this chapter is specifically focusing on how a BA can do efficient stakeholder analysis. Okay. And in order to understand how to divide these stakeholders and how to handle them in a slightly different way. The inputs that a BA requires is needs and the business analysis approach. Okay. So the approach document that she created in the previous task becomes an input over here. This is one of the pattern, guys. Remember this. Take a note of this. Let me go to the whiteboard. when you're studying for the BA, for the ECBA exam, sorry, remember this important pattern. I told you I'll tell you some patterns that you will observe in BA BOC. Pattern number one that you will observe is output of one task will become input of another task. This is true in 90% cases, okay? 90%, that is not all cases, okay? So this is one pattern you have to keep in mind, because all my students say, ma'am, so many tasks are there. How do I memorize input, output? I'm getting so confused. So what I tell them is, try to understand the pattern. Wherever the input of the previous task, sorry, the output of the previous task is becoming an input in this particular task, you don't need to memorize it. You just have to remember the output of one task, and you can understand, okay, this is becoming an input of the next task. What you need to remember is you just need to identify the exceptions. So identify exceptions. That means tasks which do not follow this rule. There are very few tasks which do not follow this. So in your notepad, make a note of these tasks which do not follow these rules and just memorize their inputs and outputs. Isn't that simple then? This becomes relatively simple when you understand this particular pattern. Like, for example, if you see in this particular chapter itself, you will see all of these tasks are having input. The input of the task is the output of the previous task. But the last task has a totally different input. The last task, the fifth one, which is identify business analysis performance improvement. My whiteboard, is it visible to everyone, guys? Whiteboard? Not visible. Okay, let me see. So I guess now it's visible to everyone. Maybe it took some little time to load. Okay, so what I've written in the whiteboard is the pattern that I just told you. Output of one task will become the input of another task, which is true in 90% of the cases. So just identify the exceptions and document it separately. It will your study for ECBA becomes relatively simple. So stakeholder engagement, I mentioned, we are going to do an activity of stakeholder analysis, because as a junior BA also you need to identify who are the right stakeholders. Now let's see. Tell me, guys, what happens when you identify the wrong stakeholders? Tell me, what happens? As a BA, you are not able to identify who are the right stakeholders should be involved in requirements gathering or requirements approval. What happens? What happens if you're talking to the wrong people? Exactly. If you're talking to the wrong people, you will get the wrong requirements or incomplete requirements. Yes, wrong information. So this is a common problem in most of the projects. In one project, let me tell you a story of a project that I had executed. When I got deployed in this particular project, in most of the projects in our organization, this used to be the pattern that, when a BA is onboarded in the project manager informs the BA about who is the customers for. And there's an introduction meeting. There's a meeting, introduction meeting between the customer, the BA, and the product manager. And the BA is supposed to explain the experience that she's bringing to the table and all of that. Okay. The project manager arranged for this meeting and told that, this so-and-so is going to be the single point of contact for all the requirements in this particular project. And I just went by what he said, only to realize that the first release that I executed, during UAT of that first release, we observed several hiccups. Now, in the UAT, there were several business users participating from the customer side. Each one of them tested the application and they reported a lot of defects. So I was simply, the next day when I reached office, I was surprised by the number of defects that the business users had logged into the system. And in that project, we had very strict checkpoints and UAT UAT was supposed to be a very clean environment, and we should be strictly monitored. UAT should be, there should be zero defects reported. Like I made small slight defects in terms of some cosmetic defects, some font color, things like that. Those never mattered. Okay, changing a button color or a font color. But if there are functional defects reported in UAT, then there were a lot of questions raised on the business analyst. So our project used to be very strictly monitored by the senior management. And I was simply surprised when there were so many defects reported by the business users. And my project manager was like, what's happening? So I read through these defects. I told him that let me give me some time to analyze what is exactly reported by the business users. When I analyzed those defects, I figured out that most of the defects that were logged were actually not defects. Those were changes. If any one of you are already working as a BA, you must have already experienced this. In UAT, business users many times log changes to the original functionality as defects. They call it defects. Have you experienced that? Then type yes in the chat box. Yes. So I got a bunch of changes from the business users. And I was like, hey, this is not how it is supposed to work. They have put in new features and everything. Where is this coming from? So I had a call with the customer support with whom I used to coordinate. And I told, hey, Harry, there was about 20 defects reported yesterday in UAT. And I went through all of this. None of these are defects. They are new changes coming from the business users. Harry was like, okay, let's do an analysis together. So we had a joint call where we shared the Excel sheet and we went through. And he's like, okay, so maybe this is how they want the functionality to work. So let's do it. So I was like, in UAT phase, you can't do these changes. We will do it in the next sprint. So it's like, no, we have to do it because they're asking for it. And there was then the entire situation. We got into a very messy situation. To be very frank, there were a lot of calls, escalations, and primarily, at the end of whenever from the project per se, anything is to go wrong, now guys, I used to sit some time to do a retro of my, why these things happened, and how could I avoided getting into this kind of a situation. So I figured out that this person, customer swap, Harry, he was not very well versed with the requirements. So the actual users of the system were people who were doing UAT. So there were about 5 to 6 users from the actual department that's going to use the application, but they were never involved in the requirement gathering meeting. Harry was one of the senior managers from that department, but he was never using that particular software. So what he thought is appropriate for his department, he was giving me as a requirement, which is very wrong. Okay. Now, Harry did not do it deliberately. Of course, you'll see the many times customer spots from the other side, they also don't understand the criticality of this. The direct users of the system should be involved in requirements gathering. They don't understand that. They're like, okay, I'm senior manager here. I know the application, so I can give the requirements. So when it comes to the ground level staff using the application, they will have a different set of expectations for that application because they are doing their day-to-day job. They want certain automation to happen so that their work becomes a little easy. And if the application is not providing that flexibility, they will just reject it, saying, okay, this is a defect, this is not working, that is not working, which was exactly what happened in our case. So I suggested to Harry. And one of my other student also, whom I've been mentoring, is facing a similar kind of a situation. And his situation is slightly different from what I just told you, because the business users are not very supportive of what he's doing. So that's altogether a different scenario. But let me tell you, this is a repetitive issue that happens in business analysis. And it primarily happens when you don't do sufficient stakeholder analysis. So in my case, where I failed, like I tell in all my webinars, I would like to tell my students that the areas that I failed, so that my students take care and then they don't jump into those areas. So I just went, number one, I just went with what my project manager told me. He introduced me to a customer spoke, and I just went blindly gathering requirements from him. I did not do further stakeholder analysis. I did not investigate who are the other people who are involved in his business unit. Are there other business units also using this application? I did not check all of that. So what were the next steps? In the next release, now this release was in a complete chaotic situation. There were a lot of escalations, and we had to do last-minute changes in the application, which I really don't recommend. And I really get very annoyed when the customer asks for last-minute changes. But we had to do it because there were some mistakes made. So we did it. Next release, before we started with the requirement gathering itself, I had a call with Harry and made him understand. told him that I want at least one business user from your department who will be involved in all the requirements gathering. So I did a further detailed stakeholder analysis to understand who is doing what in his department. That is the significance of stakeholder analysis, guys. Many BAs do not understand the significance of this. They say, okay, this is some theory written in BA See, every theory that's written in BA has importance in business analyst role. It's just not written for the sake of it, for you to clear the exam. No, we can actually implement it in our project. So I'm going to show you a very, yes, we are coming to that particular point. I'm going to show you several techniques by which you can do stakeholder analysis, how you can do efficient stakeholder analysis. We're going to see that. Just give me a moment. Let me just complete this particular slide and we will quickly jump on to a tool. Stakeholder engagement, this particular task in WebOp talks about stakeholder analysis in terms of identifying stakeholders who are directly or indirectly impacted by the change that you're going to make. Okay. And the various characteristics of stakeholder, or remember, very, very important, even from the example, say, roles, attitudes, decision-making authority, and level of power. Depending upon the role a particular stakeholder is playing in the organization, he will have a different level of decision-making authority. I hope each one of you understands decision-making authority. People who are senior level, who are in senior level roles in the organization, they have higher decision-making authorities, right? They can approve certain things, but people who are slightly junior in the hierarchy, they will not have decision-making authorities. They don't have approval authorities. And similarly, level of power or level of influence in that particular project. So stakeholder analysis is performed based on all of these parameters. Now, attitudes. Why do you think attitudes is playing a key role here? Can anybody think about why attitudes are listed in BA BOK? Why do you think the attitude of a stakeholder is so important in a project? Each one of us have different attitudes. And when we talk about attitude, I'm not talking about attitude in a bad per se, that this person has lots of attitude. Each one of us has a different level of attitude. How does that impact your project? Yes, different perspectives, different ways of thinking, but how does that have to do anything with your project? Why should we even bother about stakeholder attitudes? Thinking question, right? That's a good point. You're on the right track. The attitude of the stakeholder definitely defines the kind of cooperation you will get from them. Like in one particular project, I'll tell you, certain stakeholders from the customer side were not very supportive or during the requirement gathering session. Now you might think about this. Now just think about this. I'm going to tell you a short story. We went in for a requirement gathering session. We had a requirement gathering session with the customers, folks of one particular business unit, and they were not very cooperative. They were pretty rude during all throughout the requirement gathering meeting, and they did not give us much information. Now, at the initial stage, we were not able to figure out where this was coming from, as to why they disliked us so much and why they had so much of negativity towards this project. Now, you might wonder, now the customer has a problem and he has invited us to solve it. Why will the customer not cooperate? Why will they be rude and not give you information? But this also happens in projects. Don't think that all your customers are going to be very cooperative. If you are working with a very cooperative, very nice customer, all the best. Then that's good. You are really, really fortunate to have a customer who's cooperative, who is working with you hand in hand for the requirements. Then you are in the safe zone. But all customers are not like that. You will, in your business analyst journey, you will meet several customers who are not very cooperative. And in our case, what was the reason for this non-cooperation? We figured out later that the set of applications, the bunch of applications that we were developing for this organization was going to automate most of the tasks in this particular business unit. So we were doing requirements gathering from I think 6 different business units. So it was a very large engagement. Now, most of the business units participated in requirement gathering. They were very cooperative. They gave us information. But there was just one business unit with whom we were facing this turbulence. So we figured out that our application is going to completely automate the system, the processes in the business unit, due to which many of these guys are going to lose their jobs. So it was that fear, guys, type fear in the chat box. It was that fear due to which they were resisting us. Okay. So there might be, when you see a different attitude from a stakeholder, there is obviously a reason. There is an underlying reason behind it. So all stakeholders from the customer organization might not be supportive of the project. Several stakeholders might be there in the requirement gathering meeting just because they have been pushed by their senior management. That yes, this is one project you have to work. It's just pushed down their throat. So you will see that they are not very supportive. There is less cooperation and all of that. So let's go quickly to doing an org model. Now in stakeholder engagement, to figure out who are the right stakeholders, how do we do a stakeholder analysis to figure out who are the right stakeholders with whom you should coordinate? There is one simple technique called as organization modeling technique. This is there again in the techniques chapter, guys, in the above. Take a note of this name, organization modeling technique. Now I'm going to take you to a tool where we can do this organization modeling. Let me just log into Business Analysis Hub, because you will be doing this diagram along with me. Log into Business Analysis Hub and click on Career Growth Funnel. Share my screen. Sharing my screen. So I'm in this Career Growth Funnel, and here you will see different videos. Also, there's a video on interview preparation. You can see all of that later. What I want you to want to show you is in the section called as Bootcamp Project, there is a section where I've uploaded Visual Paradigm. Okay, just click on this Visual Paradigm. When you click on this, what you will get is the steps by which you can access Visual Paradigm. Now, what is Visual Paradigm? Visual Paradigm is a modeling tool, just like Visio. Visio, Visual Paradigm, they are all siblings. Okay, so if you know Visual Paradigm, you know Visio. It is like that. Okay, both are on similar lines. What you need to do is click on this URL that is there, Online Visual Paradigm, and select the diagram that you wish to draw. So I'm going to show you which diagram you have to select. You just need to click on this link, guys, and open it in your browser for now. Okay, and I'll show you what is the next step. Everyone with me? I'll give you 2 minutes to load this Visual Paradigm, because this is a tool that we'll be using often in our masterclass to develop, to draw several diagrams. Okay. Let me just load Visual Paradigm now. Now, when you load Visual Paradigm, you will reach in a workspace area like this. Okay. What I want all of you to do right now is just bookmark this link so that every time you don't have to go to Business Analysis Hub and take this URL. Okay. What do you do to do a bookmark on your browser? You will see the 3 dots, just like how I'm showing you. Just click on those 3 dots and there is a bookmark option here. Bookmark this tab. Select the first option, bookmark this tab. It will get stored in your bookmarks here, guys. Then you can just click on that link and you can, every time that you want to see it, you can just invoke the bookmark. Click on the bookmark. So you don't need to go to a Business Analysis Hub every time. Keep this link handy because we'll be using this throughout our masterclass to do different diagrams. So now we are in the Visual Paradigm workspace. Now in this search that you're seeing on the right hand side, just type org. When you type org, you will get something like this, organization chart. I hope you're able to see on my screen. When you, as soon as I type org, it showed me an organization chart template. So what I do, I take my mouse to this organization chart and I click on create button. Okay. So it gives me I need to use template like this. I can keep on adding new departments to it. So what we are doing is, so now most of the organizations already have an organization chart. So if your customer organization is already having a org chart, you can utilize that. Then there is no need to create it. But we are creating it considering that there is nothing like an organization chart. So in your first few days as a BA in a particular project, try to do in-depth analysis about who are the stakeholders that you should be interacting with. Okay. So what do I do here? In the first topmost node, I will add the name of the sponsor. Hmm. Let's use some dummy names over here. Here. Put, you can change the color of these boxes and everything. Okay. It here so that everyone can see. So I mentioned the name here, Peter, and I can also mention his designation, the role that he's performing. So his role is that of a sponsor. His actual designation in the organization might be different. Okay. So let's say he's the head of asset management department, heading the asset management department. And put Peter as a sponsor, and then we can put the boxes. In the boxes, we'll have his one downs. So who are the one downs for Peter? Mary, one of the VP. Jack, he's another VP. Different product lines are having different VPs. Just increase the size of these boxes so that is visible for you. Yes. So all these boxes are you can expand the width and everything. Okay. Just place your mouse on these boxes and you'll see these all the sides being marked like this. Just need to drag this. See, just like how I'm dragging it. We can further then expand this. We want to add. Mary has two managers, senior managers reporting to her. So I can add a subsection. So if you take your mouse cursor on the left hand side, there are different nodes that you can add. You can add a subtree over here. I want you guys to do it along with me, guys. Try all of this. You want to add a subtree, just an if you want a connector line, you can draw this. Or if you want This is what RASI stands for. Take a note of this, guys. Very, very important. RASI is another technique that's used for stakeholder analysis. R stands for responsible, A stands for accountable, C stands for consulted, and I stands for informed. So when you prepare a RASI matrix, the RASI matrix is nothing but a tabular structure. It's not a diagram or anything. It's a table. When you prepare a RASI matrix, you get complete clarity about who is responsible for doing what task and who will be accountable. What do you mean accountable? Who are the reviewing authorities can approve it, and who are the people who should be consulted when you are doing that particular task. We sometimes we consult several leads while we are preparing certain documents, right? And informed are all the people who should be kept in the CC. They should be updated about that particular task. RASI, a simple format, is shown over here. Take a note of this, guys. In the RASI matrix, this is how a RASI table looks like. The first column, I have listed the tasks, different names of the tasks, like planning of the project, planning of the requirements, analyzing of the requirements, and testing the product. And in each of the columns, RACI, I have listed which roles are responsible for doing that task. For example, planning of the project project manager is responsible for planning, not the BA, right? So he will be the person who's doing it. So that's why his name is under R. Accountable, who is accountable for the project plan? Sponsor, because the sponsor will be reviewing and approving it. Consulted, subject matter experts, maybe the tech leads for estimation. So you can add multiple people over here. The tech leads, BAs, whoever the project manager has contacted for inputs will come under consulted. Okay, so I've put in only SMEs over here, but you can add multiple people who are involved, who are consulted. And informed means who is kept updated about the project plan. That means the entire team, right? Entire team and the customer stakeholders, they are informed. So this is how you have to read a RASI matrix, guys. The first column will always have the name of the task, and each of the other columns will have who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed. Very, very simple table. Okay. Everyone clear on this, guys? Type yes in the chat box if you're clear on this. I showed you multiple ways of stakeholder analysis. What are the 3 different ways I showed you of stakeholder analysis? Let me see how many of you have understood. 3 different ways of stakeholder analysis. By that time, let me open BABOK to show you where this technique is actually listed. Yes, correct. These are the different ways in which you can stakeholder analysis. Means you all are very, very attentive. We can use RASI matrix, we can use stakeholder register, and we can use org modeling. Okay. So let me take you to the section of BABOK which speaks specifically about it, so that from the exam per se, what are we doing? So in the techniques chapter, if you go to, is it 10.32, organization modeling. This is in page number 308. 308. Organization modeling is something that we just discussed. And they have given different formats in which you can do organization modeling, just similar to the visual paradigm diagram that I showed you. Market-oriented organization model. You can create it in any particular format. Keep your organization model very sweet and simple. Then there is another technique here, which is so that was page number 308 of BABOK, and now we come to stakeholder list, map, and personas, which is page number 344 of BABOK. 344. Here is exactly what we discussed now in terms of the stakeholder register and the RASI matrix. RASI matrix is included here. responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. There is also a mention of the onion diagram over here. Now, this is usually done by senior BAs. You don't need to worry about it. But what this onion diagram typically talks about is that you can see the diagram in the form of a slice of an onion, right? Slice of an onion it is. So you create this diagram as a slice of an onion, and all the people who are responsible for solution delivery, that means your IT team, will be the first section of that onion. Then the second layer of the onion will be the affected organization. That means from the customer side, who are the end users? Which business unit is using that application? What we have to do is you have to put in the names of the users over here in the second layer. The third layer will consist of sponsors and executives. And the final layer will be the actual customers, suppliers, the external stakeholders. Like if you talk about the Amazon website, we are the external stakeholders, right? People like you and me are the external stakeholders. So we will be the first layer of this onion. So then comes the second layer, which is sponsors from the Amazon team who is sponsoring that particular project. Then the third layer will be the end users, and then the solution delivery. So don't worry too much about onion diagram. In my entire career, I did not work on this onion diagram at all. It's just for your understanding so that you don't get confused when you do this particular technique. That's why I don't worry about that. With that, we completed an important section of BA, which is called as stakeholder analysis. So at the end of this task, guys, plan stakeholder engagement. At the end of this task, what a BA actually produces is stakeholder engagement approach document. The next task typically talks about business analysis governance. Okay? And we'll do some activities for this also. For the next task, we'll do, not for the governance task. This is business analysis governance. What does the word governance mean to you? Okay, forget about business analysis, just the English meaning of governance. Think about it. And some of the explanations already there in the slide. But think about what governance means to you. Think of what is that one word that comes into your mind when you think about governance. Yes, correct. So when we say governance of a country, it means the people who have authority to take decisions, the decision makers, the key decision makers of the country, right? Who are responsible for implementing certain rules, certain regulations. They are the key decision makers. The people who is ruling party, let me say. That is the literal meaning of governance. And this is how you need to understand this particular task also. Students, when they see a word like this, plan, business analysis, governance, they get so confused what exactly is this all about. But it is nothing but identifying who are the decision makers in your project, right? It is not necessary, guys. The people who are giving you the requirements, they are the decision makers. Don't think about that. There will be, it might be from the customer side, the junior level staff is giving you requirements. So you have to get the requirements approved by the senior authority. So for that, understanding business analysis governance is very, very important. And that it brings us to the first point. Organization modeling gives you a clear picture who has approval authority. So BA actually does it so that BA can identify who are the right people who can give me approvals. Otherwise, you'll be running helter-skelter thinking, or you might get approval from the wrong person. Even that person doesn't know that he doesn't have approving authority. You just send across your document and say that, so-and-so, Mary, please approve this document. And Mary goes ahead and approves it. And you take these requirements for implementation, your technical team gets it done. And maybe later on, the actual approving authority comes into picture. And he tells you that who approved this. And you tell them that Mary was approving authority. He tells you that there's no way Mary has any approval, or she's not a decision maker in this particular project. So that will be a surprise for you at that particular time. That is the reason. Again, it comes back to the stakeholder analysis. Stakeholder analysis is very, very important for you to understand governance also. So the two documents that we have prepared so far, business analysis approach document, we created stakeholder engagement approach document. They come as input to this particular task. And that's the reason I say, observe this pattern, guys. All those outputs are coming as inputs to this task. So this is what governance is all about. That something that I just told you, to understand who has decision-making authority and who has authority to approve changes. See, approving of changes is very crucial in a project. Suppose a particular customer has given you requirements for a particular module. A couple of months down the line, someone else asked you to change that particular module. Okay. Now, as a BA, you might not remember that who exactly is the owner of that particular module. Somebody asked you to go and make changes. You went ahead and did those changes. Later on, the actual owner for that module might come back and question you why approval was not taken from him. Okay, that is the reason how change request will be sent from the customer's organization. Who is going to approve it? Everything is very, very important. Also, planning prioritization. Who from the customer side? During prioritization is a separate topic, guys. We will do it in detail. But just for you to understand this concept, as a BA, you will be working hand in hand with the customer to do the prioritization. In prioritization also, it is very important for you to identify correct people who should be involved in prioritization. So that the key stakeholders are informed about what are the high priority items that your team is working on. Okay. So the output of this particular task is the governance approach. You will see that the name of each of these tasks, the name of the task itself becomes the output of the task, and you just need to add the word approach to it. These are quick ways in which you can memorize. That brings us to the next task of information management. Let me ask you one question. What happens when information in a project is not managed in a correct way? What do you think? What comes to your mind? Why information management is so important? Hmm. What about the others? Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a library of books at home. Okay? Now you might be having a very good collection of books. You are an ardent reader, so you like to have a good collection of books. But you have not managed those books appropriately. That means in your shelf, you are not arranged it properly. You have not arranged it in a proper chronological order, and the books are just lying here and there. It's all messed up. Okay, what will happen in that particular scenario? What happens? Anyone comes, takes a look at your library and asks you for a particular book. A friend comes and asks you for a particular book. You yourself will not be able to locate it. You read it and kept it somewhere. You know that you have that book, but you don't know. Yes, you don't know where to look for it. It's there somewhere in the cupboard. It happens to all of us, right? It happens with respect to our wardrobe also. I know I kept it somewhere. It's there somewhere here. I had not discarded it, but not able to figure out where exactly it is. It happens when we do not organize stuff in an appropriate way. So similarly, in our project, guys, we create a lot of information. As business analysts, we are responsible for doing a lot of documentation, right? So as a result of our activities, we produce a lot of documentation. Now, what good is that documentation if you're not managing it well? Let's say half of those documents are lying in my laptop, my office laptop. Half of this might be lying in a shared drive, or some of it is lying in the requirements management. It's so cumbersome, right? Nobody can locate those documents, and you yourself will not be able to locate. Let's say your project manager asks you about the requirements that you gathered 6 months ago, and you remember the requirement on the top of your head. Yes, I had collected this requirement. But details of that requirements, I had to refer back to the document, and you keep on hunting for the document. This has happened several times with me. During our days, I started my career in the early 2000s, right? So during those times, we didn't have tools which could help us arrange these stuff in a proper way. The tools now that are available nowadays in the market help makes information management very, very easy for us, unless we use it in the right way. So this particular, sorry, not chapter, this particular task is all about information management and how exactly a BA needs to store information in a appropriate format. So this is the keyword, guys. When you look at this particular chapter, this is the keyword. Purpose of this particular task is to develop an approach of how business analysis information will be stored, how it will be stored, and how it will be accessed. So when you are newly deployed in a project, the first few weeks you need to figure out from your project manager or your technical lead what is the central repository that is being used in the project. Most projects use a requirement management tool like Atlassian Jira, or it might be Microsoft Azure. Some use Rally, where all the requirements are loaded. So we'll see Jira, we'll explore as our masterclass goes ahead, we'll see Jira definitely. But it is very, very important for you to use a tool and organize all of the information. Don't keep all the documents in your laptop. What happens when you keep it in the laptop, guys? Anytime you have to go on an emergency leave or you're not available in office, your team is absolutely confused about what has to be created and what is the details of the requirements. So don't leave your team handicapped when you are not around. I used to work in such a way that even when I'm not around, my team always feels that I am around because my documents speak about those requirements. So those documents should be accessible to your team every time, even when you are not around. So if you use a central repository and upload those documents, your team also has access to those central repository and they can refer to the documents even when you are not there. So that is what this task talks about, guys. All about information management and how to organize information. Very important element in this particular task is about requirement attributes. Okay, in BA-BOK, just mention this in your notes, guys. In BA-BOK, in this particular task, business analysis, information management, there is an element called as requirement attribute, and there is a list of attributes that are given, which is very, very important from the exam perspective. What are these attributes? I'll show it to you in the Jira screen when we start Jira next session. You will see that there are several, these are just some parameters that are included along with the requirement to identify the source of the requirements, the priority of the requirement, who owns the requirement, and when that requirement underwent a particular change. So you will see in this particular screen what are the commonly used requirement attributes. I have included that. Just highlight that and bring it to the whiteboard. I want each one of you to note this down. I'm just opening my whiteboard. Yes, I hope you can see my whiteboard now. Requirement attributes I mentioned here. Very important. You have to memorize this, what each attribute stands for. See on my screen. There is absolute reference, which is a unique identifier. There's author, that means the person who's written that particular requirement is the author. Complexity level of the requirement, this can be high, medium, low. Ownership of the requirement, who owns the requirement, which particular business unit owns the requirement from the customer side. What is the priority of that requirement? What is the level of priority? What is the risk involved in that particular requirement? And what is the source of the requirement? That means the requirement, sometimes these requirements are connected to a original requirement. There's a parent requirement, and this becomes, so then we include the parent as a source of the requirement, from where that the source defines the origin of that requirement. Then we have stability of the requirement. Nice. What does stability mean? Can anybody tell me? Stability of a requirement is what? By the terminology. In BA-BOK, it says stability equal to maturity of the requirement. It means, very important element, guys, Many times in my discussion with the business stakeholders, I used to figure out that a particular requirement does not have enough stability. What does that mean? That means they themselves are not clear of that particular requirement. They are still discussing amongst themselves. So I used to give stability of this requirement is equal to low. It is an indication to my technical team, do not pick this requirement right now. This will undergo some changes. Okay. Similarly, we have attributes like status and urgency level by which this requirement should be handled and all of that. So I have just put in all the attributes together in the whiteboard, absolute reference, author, and all of that. You will find this in, let me go show it to you in Webawk. Where exactly you'll find it. We just go to information management in Webawk, sorry, and number. Yes, here. Page number 45 of Webawk talks about requirement attributes, and it gives you the explanation of each and every attribute commonly used as requirement attribute. Now, when it comes to exam, what exactly we need to learn from every knowledge area? It might be one of the questions that's popping in your head. I already spoke about this yesterday, but let me also tell you once again. For every knowledge area, when you start the knowledge area, you will see that each of these sections, like like I said, when I explain in the class, I explain it with some simple terminologies, but Webawk slightly uses a slightly formal language to present the same information. What we need to know in every knowledge area is all the names of the tasks. Names of the tasks you should be knowing which knowledge area has what task, and what exactly this task is all about. That is, if suppose I go to the first task, plan business analysis approach, what is the purpose of that task? Why does a BA do that? I explained it to you in a very simple terms. What is business analysis approach? Then read through the description of the task to understand more details of it. There's no need to memorize the entire description. Okay, there might be important elements in the description which can translate into questions. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. When I say important elements, like let me give you an example. Business analysis approach describes the overall method that will be followed when you are performing business analysis work, how and when the task is performed, and the deliverables that will be produced. A very important thing to remember: how and when the task is performed and the deliverables will be produced. So similar kind of very important ones you can pick up and mark it in Webawk. Like yesterday, I showed you the mind map technique. You can create a mind map with all these notes. So either you, if you are more comfortable preparing a Word document with notes, do that. Or if you want to do a mind map, do a mind map along with notes. But definitely, when you are studying a particular chapter, definitely prepare your own notes so that every time you don't need to go back to Webawk. It becomes tedious to go back to Webawk. Then for every task, you should be knowing what are the inputs. What is the input that's going? The elements, the names of all the elements have to be memorized. Now, within the elements, there's a lot of information given. You don't need to memorize all of that information, but important elements of that information. So you definitely need to read through. And a simple explanation, like for example, predictive approach focuses on minimizing uncertainty and ensuring that the solution is defined before implementation begins. So there might be a question saying that which approach focuses more on ensuring that the solution is defined before implementation begins. There might be a question, right? So these are the elements that you have to mark while you're studying for the exam. You have to simply just mark it over here in Webawk and take it to a Word document and do a Control-C, Control-V in a Word document. Similarly, adaptive approach focuses on rapid delivery. So when you read through Webawk, you yourself will identify certain key elements, and the ECB reference book that I have given you, that is also a very, very good guideline. But never ever skip the process of reading through Webawk. Don't do shortcut, guys. Then your ECB exam, you find that the exam is a little difficult. I want you to read through all the content slowly, but not memorizing all of that. Only picking up the relevant things. Like in this case, for example, predictive approaches typically call for formal documentation and presentations. Okay? So predictive approach equal to formal documentation. That means in waterfall, we do BRD and FRD, which is an example of formal documentation. Adaptive approaches focus more on defining requirements and designs and gathering feedback about the working solution. So in adaptive approaches, documentation is kept to the minimum. They don't believe in formality of the documentation. This kind of elements you can pick up. And look at this chart, guys. This table. This table gives you a very clear demarcation of what is predictive, what is adaptive. Again, very, very important from the examination per se. So when you read through BA-BOK, you will identify these elements which are very, very important. Timing of a business analysis activity can be affected by the following. There is a lot of redundancy in BA-BOK, guys. Remember that. So redundant information doesn't need to be memorized. We have to identify only the important ones. Some of the factors impacting complexity. You can keep a note of that. And then also, you should be knowing input, output, elements, stakeholders, techniques, guidelines, and tools. Guidelines and tools are not that frequently asked, but the rest of the things you have to keep in mind. Okay. Many students, just because BA-BOK is so huge, they skip the process of reading through the content. It is very boring, ma'am. When we are preparing for an exam, we have no choice, guys. You definitely have to. I have definitely given you a reference book, but don't memorize only the reference book and go. Because the main document for your ECB exam is always BA-BOK. Okay? Reference book, I have highlighted certain key points that you should definitely know from the exam